refer corrupt practices and largest Colombians will accept how it is a large issue. 50 billion pesos, dollar, pound 13 BN, include been lose of social asset to corrupt practices, on to Colombia's Inspector General, Edgardo Maya Vilazon. Down there include been attempts to gear the issue via laws, more than comprehensive investigations, and though by increase social knowledge via campaigns. On Saturday, Colombia is departure to try thing various. Voters will chief to the polls in a plebiscite how its supporters expect will give on stricter against corruption law. But although polls propose how corrupt practices is Colombians' top anxiety, a affirmative voice is not a foregone finding by any tool. Voters will be requested if they accept to 7 measures. 1. A pay cap restrictive salaries of members of convention to 25 times the domestic minimal wages. 2. How individuals condemned of corrupt practices be their complete verdict in prison. 3. How social entities be outdoor and translucent while employing contractors. 4. Producing countrymen include a say on the budgeting. 5. Need members of convention to be outdoor on that billing they offered, how they elect and who lobbied them. 6. For selected officials to reveal their holdings, revenue, and the taxes pay. 7. To limit selected officials to 3. Regulation in the identical legal flesh. The plebiscite is mandatory, but it is just actual if a tertiary of all voters get portion, fair above 12 millionth. For every person action to be adoptee, it is necessary to get 50% of actual votes advantage. A convention later has 1 year to rotate the measures in law and do them juridically mandatory. If how does not occur, the CEO has 15 days to do so via a edict. Non-governmental organization Clarity for Colombia says several of the offered measures would go several ways to rebalancing the ethics relation among selected officials and the human beings. But the nation's Attorney General, Nestor Humberto Martinez, told the steers were bounded and inadequate. He has named on CEO Intravenous Duque to designate specific against corruption judges to knob the increase in the quantity of corrupt practices cases. Sen Claudia Lopez, one of the adopters of the plebiscite, argues how the lead was no designed as the single decision versus corrupt practices. We requirement policy electoral reformation and court reformation. But this plebiscite is a begin, she told. All parties say they supporting fight corrupt practices. The plebiscite draft purified the Senate in an spectacular 84-0 voice. Yet, 6 out of the 7 questions had previous been entered in convention and conquered in the reduce camera. Microbean Mange, a observer in Week Semana, has named the questions inappropriate, painkiller, nearly childhood. He says largest of the measures offered are already coded by present laws. Joaquin Velez Navarro, a observer in El Tiempo, has stigmatized the proposal's clean neurotism. His critique of the plebiscite includes an assault on the action to cut the salaries of country officials, that in his type could backfire. Such a law could produce incentives for several officials to regulate their salaries via corrupt practices. Or they could put off fair human beings of devoting their vocational lifetime to social facility. CEO Intravenous Duque completely eschewed the question in his assumption of office speaking on August 7. 2 days after, he introduced to convention a pack of 4 persons legal billing designed at fight corrupt practices, 3 of that were turned on in the points of the plebiscite. Mr. Duque now says he will voice on Saturday, but his steering more democratic center side is not vigorously campaign for it. Supporters of the plebiscite wish voters to go out in numbers excess 15 millionth. But how strike will not be lightweight to reach. Recent June 19.5 millionth, or 53% of voters, took portion in the other circle of president elections, but strike at elections tends to paint lot more than voters rather than referenda. Meantime, Colombian public print is flooded in counterfeit news story designed at blasting the voice. One wide distributed mythology is how the suggestion to reduce the salaries of members of convention would outcome in a pay cut for common Colombians and pensioners. Lot human beings are hard to compromise. The plebiscite in counterfeit news story, Ms. Lopez tweeted. Do not trust input. she has forced voters to go out to supporting the proposals. This plebiscite would be superfluous if they didn't rob 50 billion Colombian pesos of us.